Was poppin', was poppin', was poppin'. Welcome, Nicky and Moose. I'm Nicky. That's Moose. What's up, Moose?
What up, y'all?
And man, we have a special episode. Yeah, look, I'm not even going to play the air horns as much. You need to listen to who we have today. We've covered Bel Air. We've covered Bamboo. We've covered the relationships that this man has had. He's been on Forbes. He's been everywhere. And I call him a branding genius. Moose may call him something else. Moose, tell the people who we have.
Yeah, this one's for the books, man. We got the one and only Mr. Brett Berish, man. It's about to go down.
Listen, this is heavy branding talk, heavy business talk. Let's just get into this intro.
Two kids from Queens, cut from a different cloth. Now joining forces, helping you to elevate your personal brand. Yeah, I'm talking about Nicky and Moose, bringing you a never-before-seen perspective into the mindset, the mentality, the behaviors, the driving force, but more importantly, the stories behind the people and brands that you know and love the most.
Now, without further ado, let's bring the guests in. Let's bring the guests. You see the bottles in the back. I didn't even show my, hold on. Listen, I had to replace the Jordans for the people who are on our viewers watching this. I had to replace the Jordans. Y'all know I don't ever touch the Jordans. They stay there. But I had to replace it because Brett gave us amazing gifts. But you see his background. Sheesh. Brett, how are you feeling?
I don't worry. Michael would replace his Jordans for a couple of bottles of Bel Air.
Talk about it.
Michael himself.
Michael himself would. Talk about it. How are you feeling?
We're both Chicago boys, so I feel good.
Good. That's a dope feeling. Moose, what we doing?
Man, I am excited for this one. Listen, y'all, we got a special episode. We were able to connect with Brett and his team from covering him on the podcast. So we got that clip of him where he was talking on Shanza's podcast and really sharing his perspective and his experience. And we were like, okay, hold on. Nicky and Moose alerts came up because we realized that this is definitely an opportunity for us to share a different side of the story with those of us who are interested in expanding their brands and reaching their or expanding their reach through business and things of that nature. So you see him here, CEO and president of Sovereign Brands, well established. The accomplishments are all over the place. If you haven't already, make sure you just Google the name, Brett Berish, okay? But for now, let's just jump right into it. Mr. Brett, man, give us, for the few people, as Nicky would say, who don't know who you are.
The three.
Yeah, just a couple. Just a couple.
Our audience knows you. Don't do that. Our audience knows you.
Right. Tell the world who is Brett Berish.
As I always say, I'm a nobody. It's always been about the brands. And for me, the brands are Bel Air, which, if you guys don't know, and it just happened, we're the single largest champagne premium sparkling in the United States now. We passed Moet and Veuve as number one, which is amazing. My other brand's Bamboo Rum, which is now the single largest premium rum in the United States, and it's in about 80 countries. I got another brand, McQueen and the Violet Fog, my gin, which is just awesome. And then the newest one is Vion, and my past brands, Ace of Spades and Douce. But I love them all.
Look, let me ask this question. Like, for my branding folks, the name, story, quality. What comes first? Okay, because I've done my research. You're big on all of them, especially the story part, right? But the quality is so important. But then I couldn't figure out, well, what was what? So what comes first and why?
To me, it's a great question. It's not about it. I've interviewed a whole bunch of musicians, and I almost think it's somewhat similar to musician, where Sometimes they hear a beat they like and they hold on to it. Sometimes there's a hook that they like and they hold on to it. Sometimes it's a story they want to tell, and then they're combining the three of those together and come up with something. And for me, and for what we've been doing, it's the same thing. So maybe I get inspired by a design I like, and I'll come up with something, and I kind of just hold it and sit on it. I'll have a name that I'll love and hold it and sit on it. And then I'll start drinking a category and getting familiar with it and come up with an idea of how can I make it better. And that's the one that's the most important, because if I don't have, I need them all to launch anything, but the liquid's the most important because you can get them on the package, meaning they could see it, they love it, they'll pick it up off the shelf and they try it. If they don't like it, they won't come back again. So you need a little bit of everything, but for every brand, it's different. There's a different story of how they got started and how they end up on the shelf.
That's good.
One of my favorite things about what I've heard you say in past interviews, Brett, is your emphasis on the story.
Yep.
Like you really like to highlight that. And I feel that there's a lot of pressure that maybe people feel when they're looking to grow their brands because they feel like it has to be curated perfectly. It has to be, almost like this esoteric type thing, where for you actually are really just documented how it came to be, the origination. So how did you gain that courage, really? Because I feel to some extent it's a courage to say, I'm going to just tell it how it is.
Well, in terms of the brand itself, or is it, I want to make sure.
To tell the stories. Yeah, the courage to just tell the stories and capturing that whole timeline together. Of
the brand or what I've done?
Both, really.
The story comes, for me personally, I look at it as I'm constantly evolving. I'm constantly trying to own and figure out how to be me, if that makes sense. And the more you can do that, and I wish I was the way I am today 30 years ago, but I just wasn't. I didn't have the confidence. I didn't have the trust. I didn't have the gut. I didn't have depending just on me mentality. So I feel like I'm just continuing to evolve and trying to get better. And that's what a brand is. A brand is trying to, find its way in the world, and you got to manage it and build it and make it progress. I tell stories about, I don't know if I'm going to answer your question, but I'll answer it. It's like children. I have 6 kids in my family, and they're all great. They all have the great DNA, but they're all different.
Right.
And you don't know what they're good at until you put it out there. And that's what branding is to me, is you just kind of got to put it out there and figure out where is it, who's attracted to it? What kind of friends will this one like? Or what kind of friends does this one like? Or what's this one into? And to me, that's branding. That's real organic brand building.
What do you feel has to be in a brand story? Right? Like what are the elements that you've seen that are common with each of your brands that always has to be there?
I think the best way to describe it is, and I think when I was on the podcast that you guys saw, he asked me, David asked, gosh, you seem really passionate. Actually, when I first met him, I was at Ross's house, and he said, you seem really passionate about what you're doing. And I don't know what that means, other than I can't fake it. And if it's real, if everything's real and it's real to me, and the brand story is real, and the brand identity is real, and the bottles, they're all, there's always something special, whether it's the top or the name, or there's no paper on the package, or it could be embossments or debossments. Like, I got to have all this stuff because I want to know that I put it all in there. And when I go out and share that story to a consumer or to the trade or to you all, it's got to be palpable. I got to feel it. So I have to believe in it. if you don't believe, and this is why I have a hard time launching brands. And Moose, getting back to your example of some people do need to have everything down. That's me. I got to have it all down, because if I can't look in the eye and tell you my brand is absolutely better than the next person's, then I can't launch it. I can't believe it. I can't do it. So you can't fake it.
Did that mentality always? Did you always have this mentality from the very beginning? Like thinking back to the beginning of your career, whether you had to, maybe you weren't as established and you had to earn the trust and get people to say, okay, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a good question. And you're making me think. I think from the branding side of a brand, yes, that hasn't changed. I think what's changed is, and I've said this, I said this to David as an example, which was the opposite of what he tells people, is I said sometimes not having a plan is a great plan. And that was I've made lots of mistakes, and I tell people all the time, everything I do today is based on making tons of mistakes early on. And I think one of the mistakes I made early on is, I created this brand, here, the bottle's perfect, the liquid's great, the story's great, the name's perfect, there's pedigree, it's got everything. But early on, I had this plan of, okay, this is where it should go and this is how it should exist. And I stuck to it for a year or two. And my mistake was, Jesus, if you're wrong, you just stuck to a plan that's not going to work for the next year or two. And that's not healthy. And for me, it's constantly being really close to it and watching, where does it work? Where isn't it working? How does it, how do I manipulate it and see where is it better off? I use an example, in the music space. I'm sure you know Russ.
Yeah.
And I interviewed Russ. Russ was telling me the story about he'd put his music on SoundCloud and he'd see, boy, I got fans in the state of Washington. Who knew? And what did he do? He went to Washington and he supported his fans in Washington. Then he saw he had fans in the Middle East. They all assumed he was Middle Eastern. He went to the Middle East. He supported his fans in the Middle East. And that's what I do. I want to go support where the brand is working, and then I'll backfill later. And that's brand building. That to me is good brand building, because you're going where you're wanted. You're going where you're needed. You're going where the brand, for some reason, has taken hold. And I like that side of it. I can't force the brand in anybody. And I want people to take to it. And those are the people I love first.
The thing that I got from that was also a piece of research, right? Like understanding where your audience is. That's what Russ did. And he went there. Now, for you, what is your process for researching when starting some of these brands? Like everything from, the ingredients to even some of the markets that will accept it. And I got a part 2 to that, but I don't want to overload you. But the research process first. So,
well, it's funny, big corporate companies they'll do, focus groups. And I could tell you great stories about that, right. Focus groups, and have all sorts of input from different people. Again, it gets back to this idea that I got to trust my gut. I got to trust my instincts. I got to believe in this. And if anything, Nicky, the only thing I am afraid of is when something's hot. Okay. When something's hot, I don't want to jump in, because I'll be last. I'd rather jump in where it's not hot, or it's the last place people will go, or no one's really talking about it, because that to me is interesting. Now my job is to make it special, to grow something that doesn't exist. But it sounds silly. It starts with drinking. I drink a category. I start getting used to it. I start getting a feel for it. I start figuring out, how can I make it better? Who's my competition? So I'd always start, who's my competition? Right. What do they taste like? What do they like? What are their story are they telling? And now my job, I literally think like this, is I want to make a better product. If I have a gin, my gin is McQueen My competitor is Hendrix. I want a better product than Hendrix. I want a better taste than Hendrix. I want it to taste better. I'm going right after them. I want a better story. I want a better name. I want a better everything. That's what I'm after. So it's putting those pieces together to get there. Bel Air, I'm going against Moed. I'm going against Fouve. I want something different. I want something better tasting. And it starts there, and then building that brand, that bottle, that identity. But then it gets back to this idea of trusting instincts. Yeah. So, and I'm jumping ahead, but it's a good example. This brand, when I first introduced it, and as I said, it's the single biggest brand in the United States now. One thing that all my brands have in common is everyone in my industry said they're going to fail. Brett, don't do it. Brett, it's a mistake. Brett, this brand, you're launching a rosé, Brett. You can't do that. You got to launch a brut first. That's what everyone does in the champagne category. Brett, you're doing a rosé. You're putting in a black bottle. You can't see the liquid. You can't compete with those other brands at that price point. If it was 6-7 years earlier, I would have changed everything because I didn't trust myself and I didn't believe in what I was doing. Luckily, I made lots of mistakes and I learned from them. And I said, no, I'm committed to this. This is what I want to do. This is how I want to do it. And look what happened. But that's hard. That's hard, trusting your instincts. That's hard, sticking to your gut. That's hard, when somebody who's 35 years or 40 years in this industry and telling you that's not the way others do it, Brett, you can't do it like that.
Right.
Well, it's being comfortable with who I am and how I want to do it. And I'll get there. I'll get their mentality. Nicky, does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that answers it. And actually, it brings up a completely different one than the other one. So that I'll save that other one. But with Bel Air, did you go more for your instinct and what other people didn't want you to do because maybe of how the past brands were? Like you listened to everybody before. I remember you speaking about the first brand, I think it's 3, yep. Right? So, and you can speak on that too, but your past one, you listened to everybody and it didn't succeed the way you wanted to. Now you're saying, nah, you said do this, I'm not doing it this way. So was that intentional? Like every not advice, but like everything that they said you couldn't do, you're going to now prove them wrong based off your past?
No, the short answer is no. It's more about you got to have principles that you believe in and what you're trying to do, right. And trusting those principles. It's not because someone said do it this way and you know what, I'm going to do the opposite. It's just I'm going to do it how I think it should be done. And if I think that's the right way, in the early days, I have a philosophy now. If anybody's going to screw it up, I want it to be me.
Right.
I want it to be me. And I think back in those days, I know I made decisions because I assumed everyone else is smarter. Everyone else is they're wiser than me. They know, they've been in the business longer. And I think that's my demon. I didn't have that confidence or things like I'm saying, or having a plan and sticking to it too long, or not being close enough to the brands, or relying on other people that that they're going to make it. They're going to make it successful. I have to make it successful. It's lots of little things. I tell people this all the time, and I tell my team this all the time. You can justify anything. You can justify anything you do. It was the right decision. It's the right decision. It's the right decision. I should do this event. I should spend this marketing dollar. But the key is to not justify. The key is to really rip it apart and see, was it worth it? Should I have done it this? Could I have spent it differently? Could I have tried something else? And I think those are the things that I constantly learn. And because I'm very good at making mistakes, but I'm learning from them. And I'm analyzing, I'm always questioning things. And I think that's a healthy thing to do. Not everything is work. Not everything is justifiable.
That's good.
I like that. And I noticed that a few things from what you've mentioned so far, right? The brand always comes first, which I love that idea. And I also noticed that you're very competitive. Like you said, I want to know who's number one. And I'm going to go after them. Like I want to compete with the best. Now I'm seeing that you're starting to do more of like personal interviews a little bit more, right? It was brand first, and now you're showing face to show, hey, I am the brand. Like, I'm the person behind the brand. Is that a strategic move to help accelerate growth and maybe be different than competitors? Is that a competitive thing?
It's a great question, and I think it gets back to my original comment, which is I'm evolving. So if we knew each other years ago, I would constantly say what I said early in this talk, which is it's all about the brands. I didn't want it to be about me. It's not about me. Who cares about me? It's about the brands. It's about what's in the bottle. It's the stories. But I'm also learning that, geez, if I can help my brands, if I can help support them in a different way to get there faster, to get there better, to tell that story, boy, I can add more value to the brands. I can do more. And that's just an organic thing that's kind of come about, and I have to get comfortable with, and I have to accept that, geez, this is kind of cool. I can be my own brand ambassador.
Right.
And I'm learning how to do that.
Now with you creating so many brands, have you taken some of the lessons from that to your own personal brand?
It's the same, definitely. It's the same thing. It's, how can I do better? What's working and what's not working? It can be as simple as, I remember we shot a little video with Lil Wayne for Bamboo, and oh God, it was amazing. It was funny. It was cool. Wayne posted it, and it didn't get any reaction, like nothing. And then Wayne posted something else afterwards with nothing to do with Bamboo, and boy, it got tons of reaction. And what we saw was our video was too nice. It was too perfect. It was too clean. And what it should have been is just more raw. And we changed it. But that's an example of constantly, you can say, wow, it worked. Sure, it worked. But the key is make it better. How do you, don't justify it, make it better. And I think that's what I'm doing in my personal brand is, how do I make it better? What can I do? What can I do to improve either what I'm doing or what the brands are doing? But at the same time, it's also, and this is why I love having these conversations, because I wish there was the Brett Berish for me when I was 20 years old, when I'm 19 years old, when I'm 24, 25, and someone I could listen to who made lots of mistakes, who it didn't happen overnight. So that's a different side that I really enjoy now, is just being blatantly transparent on all my failures, because that's how I got here. And if it wasn't for those things, if it wasn't, I joke, and you mentioned my first brand. I tell everybody, my first brand is my most successful brand. It doesn't exist today, but it's my most successful because it's based, all my brands that are successful are based on what I learned from that first one. It's all the same thing.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get into that. That's part of my question. That's part.
You've mentioned a few names so far, Brett. So I'll probably just jump into it now. As far as at least the relational currency of brand building, because of course we were doing some research and we came across your show, Self Made, and a lot of incredible guests on there as well. And it makes you wonder, like, my goodness, there's a lot of great relationships here. I mean, the content is great, but the relationships, it seems that there's some relationship there as well for people to be willing to sit down with you and have such honest and real conversation about their journey. How did the relationships come about with such a wide, array of people there?
Well, I think it gets back to, again, hopefully you'll ask me later about the failures, but I think it gets back to this idea that I want to be around people I like. I want to be around people where it's a real relationship. I don't want anything to be a transaction. And I try to find people that that they love what I'm doing. They love the brands. They're supporters of the brands. And I can feel it. I can literally feel it that's part of them, or it's been part of the culture, done something. And that's the tie. That's the tie between us. And I've built great relationships, whether it's Ross, Wiz, Khaled, Boogie, Gierbo, Post, and those are the big names. And then you've got all the up and coming ones. I want real relationships. I don't want it to be a one-off thing. It's not meant to be a transaction. So it's all part of. It's not a plan, but it's all part of who we are. It's as simple as that. It's part of who we are. Okay,
I'm gonna transition to the failures. I got so many questions. Oh my goodness! But I'm a transition to the failures in a little bit. Actually, now I am. What was the biggest relationship failure? Don't have to name no names, but because it seems you are like a master in relationships and just have so many great ones, what was a hard lesson that you learned about relationships?
You got it's the easy one. Is you can't. It's like getting married. You can't meet him today and marry him tomorrow. You gotta. It takes time. You got to build a relationship. It's like dating. And I think that's always everyone's biggest mistake is you're caught up in the limelight of who they are and what they are, but you don't know them. You don't really know them. And so to me, this is where patience comes in. You can't rush into this stuff. Partnerships and brand building and relationships take time. And it starts out with a conversation, but maybe it's 6 months later, you realize, boy, I like this person and they like me and they like what we're doing. But it took us 6 months to get there, but that's okay. So I think you can't rush into this. You can't do that.
Follow up, Moose. Now with the brand building side, what was the biggest failure that you got from, you said your first brand is the most successful one, but which failure, which thing popped out the most that is always in all your brands from now and ongoing?
I said this word earlier, patience. When I started out, I assumed it would happen fast. Because it always seems like everyone, they're successful fast, they have money fast, the growth is fast. I assumed that, and I was completely wrong. Brand building takes time. There's no rush. You'll get there eventually. I have tremendous patience today, and I didn't have that early on. I wanted it. I just assumed everything happens fast, and it doesn't, or it didn't for me. It may happen. God bless if it does for somebody. Bel Air's happen very fast. That's not normal. That's if it does, great, but that's not normal. And I have to keep reminding myself that's not normal. I'll get there though. I'll get there. So having patience matters.
Yeah, I like how organic it seems you take your approach to building relationships, because quite frankly, a part of brand and business, there is that strategic portion of, if we connect with this person, we can create a viral moment. That's actually a thing today on the internet or as part of marketing. It's like, let's create the next viral moment by getting these two people together. So I love that for you, it's very organic. So a fun question for you here, Brett. Let's say, and this might help fellow introverts or people who might be struggling with confidence. Let's say you're stripped of all your success, all your relationship. You don't have any of the brands. What would you do if you were starting over today to build relationships that can help you in growing a brand or a business?
I think it's I would start over and do the same things. It's meeting. If I had something to, I would try to do what I do now, which is sharing my brands with people to get a reaction, to see what people think, to let them feel and experience it, to make that connection. But again, I'd realize it's going to take time to figure it out. It's going to take time. It's going to take time to know who you like and don't like. But Moose, I want to get back to something you just said. Is, you know, in the music space, I'm blown away by this, which is, if you ask a musician what their most successful commercial song is, they will tell you 9 out of 10 will say they never expected it was going to be that song. Never.
Wow.
And what that tells me is, for those people trying to find that, what you call it, like that marketing connect, or,
viral,
that viral, you don't know what the hell it is. No one's smart enough. You can't, no one, and I think even no one knows. And to me, that just means you got to put a lot of stuff out there to see what clicks, because you don't know. You don't know what's going to happen. So this is, again, another one of those things I rely on. I don't rely on any one thing. I'll never rely on any one thing. I did early on. I don't do that anymore. I want lots of options. I want to talk to lots of people. Because one thing, I'm not even smart enough to know who that is. I have no idea.
Sheesh. Let me go back to the relationship situation. Question. What was the first celebrity relationship that taught you the most about relationships? So you don't have to name the person if you don't want to, but what was the first celebrity relationship? What did they teach you about how you go about your relationships now?
It's such a good one.
Got him stumped.
It's a tough one about relationships. I don't know. I'll answer it differently.
Answer it different.
Ross has taught me, and I wish I tell all musicians this, follow in his footsteps. I want to be around people like Ross, that he doesn't wait for you to chase him. He'll go chase you. Right. And that's not normal. Most musicians, when they're successful or celebrities, they want everything to come to them. Ross is the opposite. Screw that. I freaking love Wingstop. I'm going after it. I'm going to go tell him I love it. I'm going to go do something with him. I love Bel Air. I'm going to go find out who the hell owns this brand, and I want to do something with him. That is exactly how people should be. Because if anything, that's corporate America saying, God, this is awesome. This guy loves me. And this guy's chasing me. And that shows he's hungry. So to me, that he's taught me, he reinforces that idea that go after it. He also reinforces the idea that I love, which is, if something great happened today, okay, now I got to work harder. So it's not you take it easy. You don't take the foot off the gas. You got to actually step on it harder now if something good happened. So I want to be around people like Ross. I love being around people like Ross they work every day. They're more excited if you get them excited.
No, I got to do a follow-up, Moose, because he mentioned Ross. You know how to do?
Double up.
Yeah, let me double up on this one. So is it safe to say that Ross raised the bar up, and when you look at brand ambassadors, because we've covered Ross multiple times here, and from the standpoint of he will champion a brand for like a year or two before even like approaching you and being like, let's do business for real. Like he needs to embody it. He's showing, he's putting it in the clubs. It's all on his social media. After you've seen what Ross has done for the brand, is it safe to say that like you almost not expect it, but if they don't even have that kind of work ethic or grind, you don't necessarily take them serious as a brand ambassador, or do you just have a different outlook ever since Ross came in?
Nicky, what you just said, I live by. Okay. That's it. That's the answer. Wayne did that when he name a brand that Wayne's ever supported. Like, there isn't. Right. Wayne loved Bamboo. Wayne was a supporter of Bamboo. They wanted to be involved. They showed it. Wiz wanted to be involved, wanted to show it. Love McQueen. Khaled, he all over. I want to be involved with Bel Air. I need to be involved with this brand. I want it. Look at what I've done. Look what I'm doing. Like, that's where the patience comes in. That's where, show me. Because for that same reason, that's... again, those are relationships that's building over time. But that's the kind of, again, to me, I'm not chasing stats and I'm not looking at who's hot. And hell, when we started working with Wayne, this is before he hadn't put an album out in years, and everyone's on him. Right. To me, if anything, I like that even more, because I want that guy who's got a chip on his shoulder. Right. I want the guy who's no one's looking at, who's going to come back and do anything. So I don't care about that. I care about the guy who's hungry and who wants it, who wants to show it off and wants to be involved and wants to do things and gets excited. And like, I need that energy. I want people like that on my team. I want those people in my army.
Wow. It's so funny because as I'm listening to you speak, excuse me, I feel that what we've been taught, just as children growing up, some of those cliche sayings where it's like, hey, don't do business with friends. And I'm listening to you speak and I'm like, man, we probably need to do a little bit more business with friends here based on what you're saying. I mean,
you know what you're getting.
Right.
You know what you're getting.
Is that an uncomfortable conversation when you start transitioning from friends into, okay, hey, we may need to sign a contract?
No, it's all business. It's all business. It's a business relationship. It's business. So it's no different than family. If everyone knows their role and understand what they're supposed to accomplish and what they're, but you gotta you guys working together, you gotta trust each other. You gotta trust each other. Right. You gotta know what each one is bringing to the table. You gotta, I don't know. Life's too short where I don't want to be around people that don't show up. I want, when Ross, it's a silly example, but it's a good one. When Ross got in some trouble a few years ago in Atlanta, I flew down to Atlanta to the courthouse. It was me, his mom, and his sister, and that was it, basically. Couldn't believe it. Wow. No one freaking shows up. No one shows up. Except for a couple of lawyers. But that's depressing. Like, you want to know who's on your team when bad happens, who's there for you. So that's the relationships I want, whether it's employees, whether it's part of my team, whether it's in brand ambassadors. It's, when Kodak Black put us in a song, a friend of the family's daughter who was like 15 told me, you're in this song called Patty Cake. I'm like, what? Yeah. Like Kodak Black. Lo and behold, I find out he's in jail. So I contacted his attorney. I went down to Florida and saw him in jail. Like, you did me a solid, dude. You put me in this song. That's amazing. How can I help you? What can I do for you? When are you going to get out of here? You got to, let me do something. Like, that's real to me. I want that kind of relationship.
So what would be the advice? Because, they see you and they're like, oh, I got to reach out to these influencers. I got to get people to support my brand, just like Brett. Like, what is some advice do you give people? Because there was a great story that when we watched the David Shands interview, that a celebrity that you not going to mention asked for some Ace of Spades, and you were like, no, right? And they ended up paying like almost, I think, $500,000 or something on that same product. and you really stand on the power of no. But not everybody does that. They're like, give me this. And they always believe they have to give out their product. Now, what is some advice that you would give upcoming brands when it deals with different influencers and celebrities?
Yeah, I think giving product is not a bad thing. It's just you gotta, again, at the end of the day, you're giving money to somebody. That's what it is. I'm literally handing money to somebody.
Right.
But you have to make the call. Does this person get it? Do they appreciate what they're getting? Do they respect what they're getting? Are they gonna share what they're getting in a special way with other people so that you're benefiting off this? That's the decision that has to be made. So you can, I remember going to Kanye West's birthday party. This was in New York, probably 10, 15 years ago. I won't say the brand. And there was probably 1,000 people there, amazing event. And they were serving a brand of champagne all night long. I bet you I was the only person there who knew what they were serving. Because it's just free product. It's just free product. It's just everyone's just drinking. So to me, that's not respecting the brand. That's not caring about the brand. So I do believe in, 99% of the time you are saying no to things because it doesn't make sense for brand building. It doesn't make sense for what you can do because you can't give it all away. You won't have anything to sell. You won't have any money. So I think there's a line there. There's a line there.
Very true.
What's a business non-negotiable for you? And also, Brett, just for clarity's sake, do you look at brand building and doing business as the same thing, or are they two separate sides of the coin for you?
Moose, let me say this. I'm just one person, so there's many different ways to brand build. There's many different strategies that work.
Sure. Yeah.
When someone so it's a great example is someone asked me, I'm going to launch a brand in the United States, and if you give me some advice, my first question is always, how much money do you have? Because that's going to set the tone. That'll dictate where you go and how far you go and what you do. So to me, I'll look at it the same way. You're like, what are my resources today versus what they were 10 years ago? They're different. I now have more resources. I have the ability to do more things, but it's still the same plan. It's still the same thing. I'm still letting it breathe. I'm still, I create a great brand like Bamboo, where the liquid, I think we got the highest rating ever for rum. The package is beautiful. The cork is big and long. It's like you could bite it like a pirate. There's embossments all over the bottle, a big X on it. It's gorgeous. I put it out in the world. Who knew our biggest single market in the world outside of the US is Canada? No one from my company has ever been there. Had I not let it go there, I never would have realized we'd have such fans there, and they love the brand. In the country of Latvia, we probably sell more cases per person than any market in the world. It's not a rum market, but they love it. They love it to death. Like, if I hadn't let it go, I wouldn't have known this. So it's the same philosophy today. It's just today I have more resources to try more ideas, and that's what I'm doing.
That's good.
Pretty cool.
Now, let me go into the packaging. Which one of your products do you love the packaging most? Like the style, the look, and like break down why.
It's the equivalent of asking me which of my 6 kids do I like the most.
Okay, pick a feature from each one. How about that? So you don't have to say favorite.
They're all, I think, the Bel Air. I love because we started with the black bottle, and it became so this is a great example. We saw on Instagram someone started Black Bottle Boys, and then someone in Paris started Bel Air Girls and Bel Air Boys, And, that's an example of being close enough to the market and seeing how people are using your brand. And now Bel Air Black Bottle Boys and Black Bottle Girls is us. Mm-hmm. So we've leveraged what a consumer did. We shared in that success with them. So it's kind of leveraging that. So, but I think the name is so strong. I love it. It's the most powerful icon for the brand. And then you've got a brand like Bamboo, that X I love because it reminds me of like X marks the spot. It's like a treasure. You've done something. The name Bamboo comes from the 14th century. Merchants would travel the West Indies and they didn't like the taste of traditional rum, which is grog, and they blend their own out of it, and they called it Bamboo. And Nicky, that gets back to this idea of where do you get the inspiration? Boy, that name is a real name. Who knew? Right. And that became the brand. Or McQueen. I love McQueen. It's McQueen and the Violet Fog. We're probably the only brand. If you ever have a chance, read the back of the bottle. It's a poem. It's a poem about this rock and roll band called McQueen and the Violet Fog, and we're probably the only brand in the world with a poem on it. Vion with our snake and sword. I love this logo for it. Vion was named after Francois Villon, was a 14th century poet from France who was an iconoclast. He went against the grain. He fought against bad people. He was ultimately killed by a monk. Some people say the word villain comes from Vion. But they each have, and I hope you can feel it, they each have a story to tell, but it's in the bottle. It's in the bottle. They taste better than any other their brand competitors.
That's good.
That's so cool. That's so cool. With as much passion as you have for the message and the story, how involved are you in the day-to-day? Like, do you feel the need to be super involved because you want it to be a very particular way, or do you feel that, well, I need to be far enough away that I can look and see and catch trends and do it that way?
I need to be as close as I possibly can. I need to be on the street because I need to feel what's going on out there. So you asked me, I think Nicky or Moose, one of you asked me, like, who did I learn from? One of the early people who I love was Jermaine Dupri. And Jermaine used to have young people around him all the time, because it allowed him to know what the hell's going on, to know what music people are listening to, how they're listening to it. He would break songs by going to the strip clubs in Atlanta to get a feel, is the song successful? But that's brand building. That's knowing music. And to me, it's the same thing. If I'm not touching it, if I'm not feeling it, if I'm not, out there, then I'm not feeling the brand. It literally gets back to this idea for me personally. It's like parenting. It is. I tell a story. My 8-year-old is wicked at math and a wicked writer. He can read, and he's terrible at he can't draw, and he's a horrible artist. He's not creative. My daughter is 7. She's the opposite. She's a great artist. She can draw, but she can't read or do math. It's just crap. What do you do as parents? You lean in on what they're good at, and then you backfill later. But if you're not close enough to the kids, you're not going to know what they're good at. And I think that's the same with brands. You gotta. I came from a place of not having a lot of money, so I gotta know what's working. I have to be close to it, because then I'll know what's working and where to push. Or I'll know what's not working and where not to focus, and that saves money and time.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, actually, on that note, have you ever made a drastic change because of what you saw out in the marketplace, or just how people were responding? Maybe you put something out and said, "Man, we'll keep it, but we just got to do it differently." Is there something that comes to mind?
I think the biggest one. It wasn't a change other than it reinforced the philosophy of letting things breathe. Mentality is, when we had Ace of Spades was 90% of the sales were nightclubs, on premise, they call it. That's bars, restaurants, and nightclubs. And it was nightclubs. And we assumed Bel Air would be the same thing. It's been 9 years, and retail has been the major focus of it. There's a saying in our industry, you sell it on premise, bars and restaurants, and sell it at retail. We built a brand the opposite way. It wasn't the plan, but it became the plan based on what worked. If that makes sense. It became the plan. So Bamboo, great example. In Belgium, this brand is 100% retail sales. We're the number one premium rum in Belgium. In Czech Republic, we're the number one premium rum as well, but it's 100% bars and restaurants. They both work, but who cares? They both work. So there's no, I like to let things breathe, because then we'll figure it out. Where is it working? If it works at a local bar, great, build around it. If it works at a C store or convenience store, great, build around it. It's finding people. It gets back to this idea of finding people who are behind your brand and support them. It's like a fan.
Yeah.
So true. So, okay, let's talk about, I'm going to ask a selfish question. Self-made tastes better, your content series, right? Selfishly, everybody knows I love Nipsey, okay? Don't talk to us. Talk to me, right? Sorry, audience, I love you. But what was the biggest takeaway that you got from that episode when you interviewed Nipsey Hussle?
As Ross would say, too easy. Oh, let me do it better. Too easy. I had just interviewed, we had done 2 interviews that day, and we had just finished to wrap the first one at this house, and Nipsey shows up, one by himself, and he shows up early.
Right.
Never happens. Never happens. No one ever does that. No, he's the only person to date, and I've interviewed hundreds of people who show up alone. And there's always a bit I take away from somebody, and Nipsey tells me this story about living, growing up and popping your trunk, and I didn't know what the hell that meant. And he goes on to explain, I saw how you had to do it, and in order to make it, you got to get down and dirty and go to the street corner and open your trunk and sell your goods. And that's how you're going to get there. And he's 100% right. And I believe in that. And that whole mentality of, I got to go do it. I don't care how dirty it gets. I got to go make it happen. And if I can make it happen myself, and I can do everything myself, I can get there. Because I'm going to make it easier every day that goes on. But Nipsey, that was a great takeaway for me, and I won't forget it. And I've used it constantly because I think about that all the time.
Good. The follow up. Okay, so the actual content series, like, where did that come from? The self-made tastes better. It's amazing, and I've learned a lot from just some of the episodes that you've had. But what made you do that?
So it started, we started trying to understand, I was amazed on Instagram and seeing people hold our bottles and show them off, and they hold them like a trophy. Mm-hmm. And it made me feel exactly how I feel, which is I've done something, I've achieved something, something's happened. I'm opening this bottle, I'm sharing this bottle, I'm holding this bottle because I've done something. And it gets back to it came back to this idea of for me is this idea of everyone has that self-made story, that I did it mentality. I've gotten through it. I've achieved it. And what I wanted to hear from people, I don't get energy from successful stories. I get energy from the shit that people went through to get there. Mm-hmm. When I tell people that I had my bank account swept by the IRS because I stopped paying taxes to put all my money back in the business, or I lost my house, I had a federal marshal come and put the lock on the doors of my house because I stopped paying my mortgage because I put it all back in the business. That I used to call liquor stores, and my mom would do it too, just to hear them just to get them to hear the name Ace of Spades, because I wanted people to become aware of it. Like that grind, that side is what I aspired to. And that drives me. And that's the part I wanted to hear from other people, is that drive, whether it's, yesterday I interviewed an up and coming artist named Aspect Xavi, and he was saying to me, Brett, I'm in my new apartment and I don't have all my furniture, and I don't want all my furniture. I want to be uncomfortable. I need to be uncomfortable, because if I get comfortable, then I don't have that drive. Like, that's the stuff that gets me. Right. And that's what I want to hear from people. I want to hear their nuggets that tell you a story for that young me who thought it should happen fast, and it doesn't happen fast, and it can suck until you get there. But that's kind of normal, and that's how it's supposed to happen. Right. But that's where it started, and I love it ever since.
So dope. Such a good content series.
Yeah, Brett, this has been a very rich conversation. This will be my last question, at least from my end. We definitely, it's funny because you mentioned stories. Our podcast, our show really came together by mistake. It happened during COVID, and it was a crazy time, right? Because Kobe had just passed, and no one thought that would ever happen, although he's human, but it was just a complete shock for us. And we went on a rampant of wanting to do a cliche thing, but nonetheless do it anyway, which is give people their flowers while they're still around, where they can still receive them and let them know that we appreciate them, that we're inspired by them, and take away that macho type feel that I don't want to give compliments to another male or another female because it makes me, less than them. So this is literally our way of doing it. So to allow the work to go out there and reach you and actually have you on the podcast as a guest it's really cool. So this is our way of saying thank you for inspiring us as a generation. It's been an awesome conversation. My final question, what are some maybe mindset tips or hacks that you would give or that you practice to help people go through the daily process and the daily grind?
I think there's never one, meaning you find nuggets every day to inspire you. So, yesterday's, as I said, nugget was, don't be comfortable, be uncomfortable, and I feel that right now. But it's everything from failing is amazing, because that's how you learn. And I make mistakes every single day. And I tell David, I think of this example of, I think brand building and even your own personal building is like improv, where a comedian tells a joke one day
right.
And the audience you get the reaction, and the comedian, he then tweaks the joke because he wants to try it differently to see if he gets a better reaction. And then he tweaks it again and again. And I'm tweaking myself as a person. I'm trying to get myself better or trying to learn. But it's trusting your instincts, relying on yourself, trusting your gut. It's okay to be different. My mother is my inspiration. She's the title of every single presentation I have. There's a title page of her, 9 different pictures of her. She's 90 plus years old. She rollerblades every day. She wears our T-shirts, our hats, our sweatshirts. She has her own business cards. She'll go up to anybody and talk to them. She's fearless. And the title of the presentation is always, "We Are Different." And that's okay. That's who we are, and it's perfectly fine. But it's whatever speaks to you is that nugget. Like, that's how I look at it. Whatever speaks to you works for you.
All right. My final question before I go into my, I want to give you your flowers speech because I have so much to say, but, ideas. I'm such an ideas person, right?
Yep.
And your ideas have turned into powerful brands, right? What helps you figure out which idea to run with? Like, I think anybody who comes up with ideas have that question. And since you've executed so well, I had to make that my last one.
It's a great question, Nicky. And it's if you ask me, Brett, what were your struggles? That was my issue. I had so many ideas And what happened was I didn't pick any because I was afraid, am I picking the wrong one? Am I picking, and would I run out of ideas? So when you have lots of ideas, you don't end up doing anything. And I spent years thinking like this. And it wasn't until I was, 31, 32 years old. And I just said, I'm decided. I picked this. This is what I want to do. I'm entering the space. I have an idea for a brand. I just focused on it and I loved it. And I just love what I'm doing. And you know what happened? The ideas don't go away. They still keep coming. But what you've done is you've focused on one thing to get you to the next thing. And I always tell people, Nicky, and it's anybody can have an idea. It's not about the idea. It's about executing. You just got to go execute. You got to pick one, go execute it, and then everything else can come true after that.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. Look, for me, you get all the flowers because I've learned so much from you, from the interviews that you've done, from just the movement that you have. So I definitely want to say thank you for even blessing this podcast, because we're really big on not only showing the people, but definitely showing the people who built the brands. Like, you build powerful brands. So I definitely want to give the flowers. What's next? What's next? Moose, we didn't ask that. What's next?
Yeah.
Next is more brands. So
let's talk about it.
I can't go into too much detail because it's like show and tell. You got to have the thing to show in order to tell. But I probably have 5, 6, 7 new brands coming, new categories, great stories, great liquid. It's amazing. I've been doing it for 20 plus years. The idea is still the same. Come out with great products, great brands. And if I run out of ideas, I'll stop. But I'm excited. We've got new categories. I promise you'll get bottles to taste because you deserve them. And you'll see what we're doing. But they each have a story to tell.
That's so amazing. Look, Brett, thank you. Where can people find you? And we normally have final words, and we want you to give the final words for the people.
Find me personally. You can hit me at Brett Berish CEO on Instagram. You can hit any of the brands as well. Official Bel Air, Original Bamboo, McQueen, The Violet Fog, and Vion France. Hit us if you want to work with us, if you want to be involved with us. That's all. You just got to reach out
and have the work ethic of Ross.
And you got to have that work ethic.
Correct.
You got to. Last word. Love what you do. As long as you love what you do and have some patience, you'll get there. Rely on yourself because you'll never get disappointed ever. And the goal in life is to get other people to start believing you, and you build your own army. But it's not easy. So don't get frustrated. You're going to have bad days, but the key is to have more good days than bad days.